Welcome to the Compendium Podcast, hosted by Leadership Books. In just moments, our host, Michael Stickler, will be joining us with a very special guest. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you to Michael. He's a 4-time best-selling author, philanthropist, publisher, and highly sought-after conference speaker. His passion is to see life-changing books find their audience. Books that will change your life, change your business, and change your soul. And he specializes in helping authors and business owners achieve publishing success. Won't you please welcome Michael Stickler?
Well, thank you, Ron, for the great introduction. I am Mike Stickler. I'm your host here at the Compendium Podcast, and today we have a very unique and special author, Darlene West. Now, Darlene has written a wonderful little book called Awaken by Grace. It's a great story about redemption, guilt, shame, and redemption. And I'm eager to have her share it with you. Darlene has a bachelor's degree in English with a writing minor in a concentration of fiction, as well as a master's in adult education. Darlene is a retired corporate developer, program designer, evaluator, and she is a training needs assessor and curriculum specialist. Boy, you've done a lot of stuff, Darlene. It's amazing. Though she grew up in loved the restaurant business, her favorite regular job was being a Christian radio disc jockey. In Champlain, can I say it? Champlain, there, I got it. Champlain, New York. She loves being a wife, mother, and especially a granny. And boy, I understand that one, Darlene. So Darlene West, welcome to the Compendium Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's jump right into your book. Tell us a little bit about the big picture. Why did you write it? What is the whole motivating? What do you want the reader to get out of it? Tell us the big idea.
I want people to get hope. There's a lot of grieving, especially today with everything that's going on in our country. And it's just, I've met so many people throughout my life, and I have lived through grief. You know, I've lost my first son. I lost friends, lots of friends, and I've lost my parents. And I know what it is to grieve.
Yes.
And I know that people are grieving not only over a loss of a loved one, but they're grieving over what I would say like divorce, or they're depressed over what's going on in our country. They feel like everything is hopeless, it's over. I wanted people to have hope in their lives again. And I wanted to write it in such a way. So I write subjects, which is actually called literary fiction. Mm-hmm. It's character driven, so that you can relate to somebody. And I believe that when I write a story, because as an adult educator, I found that I can tell stories and people remember my point better. And that's why I wanted to do it in a story form, so they can relate to this person and say, wow, this is, I had one review where a woman lost her daughter. And after she read the story, she said that she wanted to move on with her life. And she said that she wanted to bring new people in her life too.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I want to encourage people. That's my main objective of the story. And I know that it was Holy Ghost driven as I wrote it, because I didn't have any writer's block. And
right.
Yeah. And normally, I mean, if I'm writing something out of my own self, I get writer's block, and I had none through the whole novel. And I felt that when I read it myself, I feel like I'm reading somebody else's book, because I know, you know, it was touched by God. And I just want to touch people. I'm a street evangelist, and I can speak to people one-on-one, but with a novel, I figured I could reach out thousands of people.
Yeah. And I so agree with you when it comes to storytelling. You know, storytelling engages the imagination, and when it engages the imagination, people have a tendency to remember it more. It also gets to their inner core, into their soul, where their emotions lie. And so they will start to feel everything from passion to grief to love to tears to depression, everything. I so agree with that concept and that idea. And so in the book, you've got a bunch of characters and they're going through some experiences. Tell the audience a little bit about the experiences they're going through.
Well, Professor Franklin, he's the main character. And he lost his wife through a tragedy. And he blames himself. In fact, he even believes that if he doesn't push his family away from him, that they're going to accuse him of being a murderer, of killing the mother and the grandmother and a mother-in-law. And his sister, his brother-in-law would accuse him of murder too. And so they are all there together, and they're trying to, his brother-in-law, who's his wife's twin brother, they met when he met his wife when they were 5 years old, and they grew up together. And she was the only woman he even kissed, the only woman ever dated, and she's gone now. So his biggest problem is he doesn't know how to move on either without his wife. And he pushes everybody away, and he gets a self-imposed reclusive lifestyle. He doesn't even do anything with social functions anymore or anything like that. So just about 2 years after his wife passed away, his daughter brings his granddaughter to him, who is his princess. And she's 8 years old, and his daughter and her husband are planning on, making some arrangements for becoming foreign missionaries. And they leave her with Maggie for 5 days. And Maggie's his granddaughter. And so through this, she introduces new people in his life. Her faith-filled prayers manifest before his eyes, and it becomes quite an arc from where he was at until where he goes. And Awakened by Grace is actually, grace is what wakens him up. Wow.
So are these characters in your book modeled after people that you have known, or have you kind of, done a montage of different experiences that you've had?
It's more of a montage of different experiences that I've had. People I've known, I've been into mental institutions and brought Bible studies, and and also, like I said earlier, on the streets.
Right.
And the mental institutions, I was so surprised how many depressed people were there. They checked themselves in because they didn't know how to live their lives anymore. They felt like they weren't worthy enough for God. They felt there was no hope in their lives. They lost a loved one or got a divorce, or something that just jolted them in their life. And now I'm seeing a lot of people today think that everything is hopeless. I don't. I keep my eyes on Christ. I know he's got a plan for our country. And so I could see how it could be. I mean, when you turn on the news, what's going on. You can't help but get like, but I have to keep my eyes on Christ. And I would like people to get hope that is not over. Nothing is over. It's only temporary what you're going through right now, because God has always got a plan for you.
That's right.
And that's what I wanted to bring out in my novel, is that God has got a plan. No matter what happens to you, it's only temporary. In fact, my mother taught me that a long, long time ago. And she said, there's always another way, and there's always something else coming up your way. And I say, God has always got a way. And I say that, this is temporary. It's only temporary.
That's right. And so when you're writing the book, what was some of the experiences you had that maybe you didn't tell your readers about, but in the whole process of writing the book, tell us some of the secrets that authors experience.
Well, I'll tell you one, that my husband, I was writing and he walked in on me and I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying because I walk into the story when I'm writing.
Right.
And there was a scene on there that was so sad for me that it was very painful for me to write it. And I was crying, and he said, "What happened to you? What's wrong?" My husband got nervous, thought something happened to me.
Right. Sure.
It's my story. And my story is made, he helped me every time I wrote a chapter. We printed it and went through it word by word and see if everything was okay. And we did it together, and he would cry too at times, or laugh.
Right.
And so I found myself laughing too, but the hardest was crying. The sad scenes was the hardest on me.
Yeah.
Because I've been there with, grief, and it can just pull you in.
Yeah. That's so true. And people, especially when you're a first-time writer, and I speak this to first-time writers out there, when you're really in the story, you're living it in your mind. I call it being in the zone. I'm just there, and I'm being emotional with it, and I'm writing passionately. And I've worked with hundreds of writers, and they do the same thing. I was working with a young woman the other day, and I had her working on a project, and I heard her. I was sitting on the couch with my back turned, and I heard her wiping her eyes and sobbing as she was sharing the passion of a true story. She was reliving a true story that had happened to her as her mom passed away. And that's really what makes a good book, because believe it or not, that passion, that heart, that fear, that all of those emotions get translated into the book, and that is what makes it worthy. And it really draws the reader in. And you'll find that as you write more and more, you'll find that where you think people are going to be passionate, it's always different somewhat with each person. So some person's going to feel passion here, and the others are going to feel it there. I find it amazing what people get engaged with. So that is great, Darlene. That is a great tip for writers and authors to understand. So what are you doing now, Darlene? What are you doing now that you've completed this book? What do your days today look like?
Well, right now is the holiday. So for my hobby, I do fudge and cookies and cake, and I sell them.
You're going to have to send me some fudge.
Okay. My fudge, I'm going to make about 150 pounds of fudge from now to Christmas. And because my fudge, I'm not known as the author around town. I'm known as the fudge lady.
Okay.
So I like to go to the fairs, and I got a Christmas market that I bring my fudge to. And we have a Christmas fair right down the road from me, and at the fairgrounds. And I'll be doing that. Plus, I want to start a new novel.
Good.
I got a new novel in my heart, and it's about a little girl that's growing up in abuse, and how God can fix that. Because see, when I was growing up, my father, for a period of time, not through the whole thing, but for a period of time, became an alcoholic. And I've gone to bed hungry over it,
Right.
And I know that, my father, most important thing for me was my father getting saved. And he did get saved before he passed away. And that was a joyous moment for me. And I can move forward without having those things coming back at me because of Christ, and I was thinking of writing something that a young girl, maybe 11 years old, and she writes letters to God.
That sounds like a great book. I can't wait to read it. Great writers love to write, and they write a lot. And so keep going, Darlene. This is and I also find your life as a great example of, people, how do I say this gently? When you get to be a certain age, you have so much you want to share. And I talk to pastors and leaders all the time who are coming into retirement or have retired, and they're kind of figuring out, look, I have all this and I don't want to just put it on the shelf and go play golf or go cook, go make fudge.
Right.
Case. And so they have this in them, and what's an outlet for them. And when you really embrace writing, it makes all the difference. So good for you, Darlene West. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else that you would want to share before we go?
Yeah, I want to share that I know my book is fiction, is not a nonfiction. And I looked at all the nonfiction books. A lot of them is the do's and don'ts of grief,
Right.
And it's more than that. You can't have an instruction manual. Everybody grieves differently, and everybody understands stories differently, like you had said. And like once when I was in a classroom, I was teaching ESL, English as a second language, to Russians. Russians.
Okay.
Yes, I speak Russian as my second language too. And I'm Greek though. And so, but this one man was only in our country for like 3 weeks. And I told a story about Frederick Douglass, and I wanted them to learn the word emancipated. And so I used the story to teach them the word so that they can have something that brings it to them. There's more than just a definition, there's meaning to it. What's the meaning that they could bring into their own lives with that word?
Right.
And so this next week, when I saw the man, I used to have these little things that I call culture groups. I coined them and I researched them out and everything. So anyhow, he raised his hand and I said, yes. And he says, in English, I will be emancipated when I learn English.
Wow.
And just, telling the story, it really touched my heart. I never forgotten that one. And telling a story can help you remember my point. And my point is that you all got to grieve your own way. You can't, there's no instruction manual of grief. I don't care what the people are, professors or, psychologists, psychiatrists, because everybody is different. None of us is made out of the same mold.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Darlene West, you're an amazing woman of God. Thank you so much for coming on our show and just sharing God's heart through you with the listeners. Awaken by Grace is the book. You should make sure that you get a copy right here. Right here. You can just click on the link right there below and you can get a copy of Darlene's great book, Awaken by Grace. I just want to thank you, Darlene, for joining us. And for all of you who are continuing listeners to the Compendium Podcast, please like and share this podcast with others so we can build our audience and more people can hear from great authors. We come out every Monday with another great author. So until next time, may God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you for joining us for today's broadcast. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And be sure to visit us online at leadershipbooks.store. There you'll find the works of some of the finest thought leaders today. And be sure to tune in here each week to gain even deeper insights from one of those leaders on the Compendium Podcast.